Tomorrow in Jackson, Mississippi, 2 museums are opening in Mississippi. One of them on the history of Mississippi, and then the other on the Civil Rights Museum. They do not hold back about the seriousness of that, even how brutal and violent Mississippi's history is. Donald Trump announced earlier this week that he will be attending those ceremonies. Also, Ben Carson will be there with him as well. But some folks will not be there. Congressman John Lewis, as well as Congressman Bennie Thompson of Mississippi, issued a statement saying they will not attend the Saturday's opening of the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum in Jackson. Many leaders are calling for Trump to stay away. In a statement, they say Trump's, quote, attendance and his hurtful policies are an insult to the people portrayed in this Civil Rights Museum. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she fired back saying, "We think it's unfortunate if these members of Congress wouldn't join the president in honoring the incredible sacrifice civil rights leaders made to right the injustices in our history. Trump hopes others will be joined in recognizing that the movement was about removing barriers and unifying Americans of all backgrounds." With that, of course, you might remember on this show, NAACP President Derrick Johnson said Trump should not attend that particular ceremony. But I want to play for Sanders exactly what she said. Go ahead.
I think that would be honestly very sad. I think this is something that should bring the country together to celebrate the opening of this museum and highlighting civil rights movement and the progress that we've made. And I would hope that those individuals would join in that celebration instead of protesting it.
CBC said they called it laughable that the White House is criticizing Congressman John Lewis and Bennie Thompson for not attending the Civil Rights Museum opening. Really? And guess what? The museum honors, yes, wait for it, John Lewis and Bennie Thompson and others. All right. One of the folks who also has been speaking out on this is Aunjanue Ellis. She, of course, actress and activist. She joins us right now from Jackson, Mississippi. And Aunjanue, you hit me the other day. You've got some interesting thoughts in terms of the focus around the opening of this museum. Go right ahead.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Roland. How are you?
Great.
Good, good. The problem is not just Donald Trump attending the museum. Donald Trump's attendance to the museum is a symptom of the problem with the museum. The museum itself. When the ground was broken on the museum, Ms. Myrlie Evers, the widow of Medgar Evers, who was shot here in Mississippi in the duty of fighting for civil rights here, the widow, Ms. Evers, when she made her statement, she got on the podium. And when she was on the podium, she was surrounded by Confederate flags. They were everywhere. They were on the dais. They were on the steps leading up to where she was speaking. No one in the leadership of the state of Mississippi thought that was shameful, thought that was a bad idea. She was surrounded by Ronnie Musgrove, Haley Barbour, and Phil Bryant, present and former governors of the state of Mississippi. On the watch of all of these men, or some of these men, these particular things have happened. One is they have maintained that the Confederate flag will still be the official state flag of the state of Mississippi. The other thing that they have done is they have designated April as Confederate History Month. The other thing that they have done is instead of calling Martin Luther King Day, they call it Great Americans Day. And then what they have done is they have designated state holidays where people, really state workers, get the day off to honor Confederate generals and Confederate leaders. All of this has happened on the watch of some or all of these men. And in addition to that, these men, under the watch of Phil Bryant, who stood next to Ms. Evers, they have passed HB 1523, which is now state law, which guarantees that owners of businesses can reject and put out people if they come in there with their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and their boyfriend or their girlfriend happens to have the same genitals as they do. So these men have an atrocious history with civil rights.
Right.
They are Confederates. They are neo-Confederates.
Aunjanue, hold tight one second. I got to get this break in. I'm going to come right back. All right, folks, welcome back. NewsOne Now. We're chatting with actress Aunjanue Ellis about the opening of Mississippi Civil Rights Museum this weekend. And Aunjanue, for a lot of folks, there are two museums that are opening this weekend. Mm-hmm. There's one museum on the history of Mississippi. There's a separate one that is specifically on civil rights. And I've talked to some people where they said, well, what is this separate but equal? The argument that you're making is the fact that you have been against that Confederate flag that's a part of the state flag in Mississippi, and that's the argument that you're making. I got about 45 seconds, but before I go to my break, I'm going to continue this top of the hour. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, the argument that I'm making is these men who have funded the museum is a state-funded museum,
right,
and they are branding this museum as a state-funded museum. And what I'm saying is these men also fund that flag. You can't do both. You can't do both. You can do both, but we have to realize that when you do both, what is that saying? What is that? What are you telling the world?
And of course you have. Of course, you have a brother there who has removed that flag from his courtroom, and he actually took it to the Supreme Court, and they refused to rule on it. And so, and you've been trying to get people to rally around removing that from the state flag and simply not accepting it. So, Aunjanue, hold tight one second. I got to get this last break in. All right, folks, we're going to continue our conversation with actress and activist Aunjanue Ellis about the opening this weekend of two museums in Mississippi. Donald Trump will be there. He'll be speaking. Ben Carson, of course, Housing Secretary, will be there with him as well. And Congressman John Lewis and Congressman Bennie Thompson of Mississippi say they will not be attending this particular event as well. I got my panel here in D.C. Michael Brown, Democratic strategist, former vice chair of the DNC Finance Committee, Tiffany Cross, managing editor and curator and publisher of The Beat, Robert Patillo, attorney and host of CBS Radio Atlanta. Aunjanue, when we had you on the show, and when y'all had a rally here on the U.S. Capitol lawn, and you talked about being a child of Mississippi, being a native of this state, and what it says to the next generation of black children who have to grow up under that flag.
It's psychologically damaging, and damning. It's all of that. I mean, these men who are opening this museum, who I call Confederates and neo-Confederates and Confederate apologists, I mean, they have never, not once, have they apologized for the Mississippi Statement of Secession, which says very specifically, our position is thoroughly identified with slavery. In other words, the reason that we are seceding from the Union is because we need to uphold slavery. And it goes on to say that the reason that we have to do this is because only people of the black race can do this kind of work in hot Mississippi. That is the Mississippi Statement of Secession. And none of these men who are involved in the funding of this museum have apologized from that position. I want to say this right quickly, and you can move on. But I have been on your show a couple of times, and thank you for allowing me to do that. I appreciate that because I think you have one of the most important news shows on television right now. What hurt my heart is that before I sat down on your show, proudly sat down on your show, I had to walk by a Confederate flag in order to get to you. Right,
and what you're talking about is, folks who don't know, we do this show we do the show 400 North Capitol here in D.C. And in the lobby, they have all of the flags of the states, as Mike said, except District of Columbia. And you're absolutely right. And same thing, Aunjanue, I've walked past that and pissed off having to look at it. You're absolutely right.
Yes. Every day that you go on your show where you have the platform that you have, not just to black folks, but to this country, you have to walk by an iconography which says that your life is not worth your chattel. The worth of your life is human chattel. You are subhuman. You are subhuman. And this I just want to make this point. The reason why you have to do that every day is not just because it's racist people in control of the leadership in Mississippi. It's because the United States government has turned a blind eye to the Confederacy since its inception. They went to war for it, but they didn't clamp it down. Because think about this. After World War II, the United States led a coalition with other countries to absolutely get rid of completely any Nazi iconography in Germany. It's illegal to this day to fly a Nazi flag in Germany. But we can fly they can fly Confederate flags all over the place. It can be the official flag of a state in this country. And nothing is said about it. You know why? Because this country hides behind the racist policies of the Confederacy to this day.
I want to go my panel here, and this is what, again, for people who don't understand. Aunjanue, I want you to stay right there as well. They're having this big ceremony. You have your Civil Rights Museum. Well, folks don't know, even with all she talked about with the holidays and things like that. If you go to the U.S. Capitol right now, and if you had an opportunity to walk on the floor of the United States Senate, if they allowed you to go on the floor, and if you went over to the desk of the senior senator from the state of Mississippi, and if you sat down and you said, this is the desk of the senior senator from Mississippi, you are actually sitting at the very desk Jefferson Davis used, America's greatest trader, the president of the Confederacy. In fact, the United States Congress passed a resolution saying for the rest of eternity, that desk will be the desk of the United States Senator from Mississippi.
Well, I think the thing to remember is that the U.S. never actually saw the Confederacy as being an enemy. They saw them as being a rebel province. They saw them as bringing them back into the Union. That they had a disagreement as opposed to having a war. That's why in the South it's called the War of Northern Aggression. So we have to not run from that history, but start telling our own story. One thing that we have in Atlanta that I appreciate.
No, not telling our own story. Telling the story from our perspective.
Exactly.
Because it's their story too. Go ahead.
Exactly. In Atlanta, we have the National Civil Rights Museum, but we also, down the street, around the corner, off Auburn, Sweet Auburn District, we have the Apex Museum, which is the black-owned civil rights museum that tells the story from a purely black perspective, tells of individuals who don't make the national news. They don't have all the big graphics and all the iconography, but what they do is have the true history. That's why it's important that even if they do open the Civil Rights Museum in Mississippi, to also have museums to tell our own story.
That's what I'm saying. But the civil, so just so folks should know, there are two museum openings tomorrow. There is the museum on the history of Mississippi, and there is one that is specifically on civil rights. Tiffany, go ahead.
Well, I would never tell a civil rights icon, John Lewis, how he should proceed, but I do think what would be more powerful is if John Lewis, Bennie Thompson, and Cedric Richmond showed up to the event and told Donald Trump to his face and spoke to the audience there and went through the list of things that this president has done and said, and not only his rhetoric, but his policies that he's instituted that are currently disenfranchising communities of color all over the country. And he can't leave. He has to stay there and feel uncomfortable and show all the things about the good people being on both sides and show that they're eroding the Department of Civil Rights at the DOJ. I think that's a more gangster move that more people can rally around, and you can't leave and sit there on camera and listen to everything that you've done and get a firsthand testimony from black people who are being impacted by it.
Or I'll be honest with you, Michael, if it's me, and you heard Aunjanue describe when they had the groundbreaking and all the different flags there. Again, I know how gangster I am. I would have 100 black sheets, and I would cover. If they had those flags on the pole, I'll put a black sheet over every single. No, I'm sorry, one of those flags. And if I was on stage while Trump was speaking, I'd probably have a shirt on or a jacket that says, Aunjanue, what's the shirts you've been wearing about take down? What does it say about the flag?
I got a million of them. X to X, take it down. I got a whole lot of them.
Right. I'll be wearing one of those. Michael, your comment, then I'm going to go to Aunjanue. Go ahead.
Ms. Ellis, good morning. Michael Brown.
Hi.
What is it like down there related to the press about some of our leaders that are not going to attend this weekend? Are they getting support? Are people mad that they're not coming? How are people receiving that?
I think, I think there are people who, who are very proud that this museum is happening, and as they should be. I mean, they're honoring our, our civil rights veterans. They're honoring the people who gave their lives for this country, and so they are disappointed that they are not coming. But the problem with that is, and Donald Trump coming is symptomatic of the greater problem with the museum. But if you have to think about this. If you got Confederates who funded the museum, you can't get upset because the Confederates invite a Nazi sympathizer because they have the same values. So Donald Trump, in my mind, is a sideshow. But I want to say this quickly about, like, if Donald Trump being there and being embarrassed because he has to sit there and listen to all the stuff that he's done and these other people, the government of the state of Mississippi has done. Here's the thing. For the last several years, Phil Bryant, Ronnie Musgrove, Haley Barbour, all of these men have been in conversation with Ms. Evers and the families of the civil rights veterans, right? Everything that I listed, that I talked to you about, all these things that they've done, they have done since that has happened. So this idea of a dialogue and having a conversation with them, that clearly has not worked. Donald Trump went to the Smithsonian in D.C., right? He went to the Smithsonian, right? Is that true?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, correct.
Yes. He did. And I have no doubt that the curators, one of the first places they took him was to Emmett Till's casket. I have no doubt. He went in that room. He saw Emmett Till's casket. He saw Mamie Till's anguish in her face. He heard her words. He heard our voices singing in anguish. Because that's what you experience when you go in that room. He had that experience. Months later, he stood up in his tower, Trump Tower, and said that neo-Nazis were good people. So this idea of we're having a conversation with people who have shown time and time again that even in the face of their shame and condemnation, they refuse to change, and they will maintain power.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I think it's not necessarily have a dialogue. I mostly mean to shame them on the world stage. I don't think we're going to change the mind of a 70-year-old who has,
No. Right, but here's the thing. Has this man ever responded with shame to anything?
Nope.
No, I agree. I think that's
not going to start. That's not going to start that.
See, that's my thing. I think for me, it's not a question of saying I'm going to go there and confront Trump. No, I'm going to go there and make a public demonstration knowing full well all the cameras are going to be there because I'm not doing it talking to him.
Right.
I'm doing it,
right.
I'm talking to America and the world.
Right.
So to Aunjanue's point, I'm going to go there and I'm going to make an attempt. Now, they try to arrest me as a member of Congress. That's fine, but I'm going to try to cover that flag up.
Right.
Because I mean, it's like, no, as a black man, I'm not going to sit in the presence of that flag. And I will, and there will likely, it will lead to a confrontation or whatever, but that has to happen because as long as we politely sit in the presence of white supremacy, then somebody watching goes, well, I guess they saying it's okay.
Well, I think to Tiffany's point that it is important. Often boycott can be the weakest form of protest. When people are just asked to not do something, I think the active part of leaders, people in the community, I think the black folks should pack it out and make sure that our voices are heard. Make sure that everyone there, from Haley Barbour to Donald Trump, understands our perspective and that we don't approve of these things because silence is often consent. So if we are silent on the issue, we just simply do not attend, then they can also take, the pictures that will go out will be Donald Trump attends the Civil Rights Museum. Everybody's happy and smiling. The flag is there. I guess the black folks were okay with it because nobody was protesting, nobody was yelling. We got to go there and make sure they hear our voice.
Okay.
And again,
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Aunjanue, go ahead. Go ahead.
We're going to be out there on Saturday. We will be out there on Saturday. Ain't nobody going to be silent. The only reason that we're going to be inside the building, the only reason we're not going to be inside the building is because we don't have an invitation. But we're going to be out there. We're going to have Confederate flags taped over our mouths. We are going to be out there on Saturday, and we are going to make sure that the press sees us. Because this is the thing.
So do this here. Aunjanue, do me a favor. Here's the deal. So Folks trying to get me to come to Alabama for the event on Sunday. I got to go to Houston to broadcast my show on Monday. Make sure y'all have y'all cameras there and just send me the video. Send me the video so we can make sure we have it on Monday as well. Aunjanue, hold on 1 second. Congressman Bennie Thompson, we got him on the phone line right now. Congressman, we're talking about the opening of the museums this weekend, and you've announced, along with Congressman John Lewis, that you're not going to be there. And we were talking about this here. Why not attend? And let's say Aunjanue is making a point that that we should not be silent about that Confederate flag flying. Why not attend and, let's say, while Trump is speaking, turn your back or wear one of those shirts that get rid of that state flag? I'm just curious.
Well, I think a number of people have their own way of showing their disapproval. That's one way. Another way is to say, I don't want to be in the same room with Donald Trump. We don't appreciate his policies. And we think it speaks volumes when a John Lewis decides to do just that. And so, however people plan to show their disapproval, we support it. So I don't think there's one strategy. I think the ultimate perspective is we all disagree with the Donald Trump policies as well as his presence at the opening of the museum. So I'm not knocking anything, but I think at some point people have to make a statement, and we chose to make our statement that way.
Aunjanue, you got a question for Congressman Thompson?
Congressman Thompson, first of all, I just want to tell you thank you for your service. I think there's an unfortunate perception about activism in Mississippi. There's this, and the reason why this perception is maintained is because on these issues, people are not interested in Mississippi because they've given up on Mississippi. They think Mississippi is going to be Mississippi. But what folks need to know is that we are down here and we are pushing and we are fighting. We are pulling down Confederate flags physically and in every other way. So, and there are mayors all over the state of Mississippi who have brought down these flags. And we also want people to know that this is not just about a flag. It is about a strategy. It is about policy. It is about law instituted by Confederates and neo-Confederates in 2017. So the other thing about it is people need to know that this is the thing, is that it's not just a problem with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom of the problem. Mr. Thompson, don't you agree? I mean, the thing about it is, how do you feel about Mr. Bryant, Mr. Barber, and the other people who are involved in the funding of this museum who have the positions that they have?
Congressman Thompson, go right ahead.
I appreciate your participation. A lot of us have spent our entire life in the state of Mississippi trying to make it a better place. We've sued legislatures, we've sued courts, we've sued counties, we've sued cities to make Mississippi a better place. All those strategies make sense. But at some point, the collective strategy is we have to oppose any effort to deny African Americans their rightful place. So whatever protest method we go for, we do it. I was a county commissioner 25 years ago, and I sued the state of Mississippi to change the flag back then. So when people come now to try to do it, I welcome it.
That's right.
But it's not the first effort.
Hey,
so
Congressman, if I gotta go to a break here, could you do, if you can make it possible, since you're not going, see if you can transfer your invitation to Aunjanue on the inside. If you can do that, I'm just saying I gotta go to a break. But if you can, let's see if we can make that happen. Okay?
I want to see the video. I'll do my best, bro.
All right, Aunjanue, you got his number. Let's see if we can get you on the inside. All right, Aunjanue Ellis, I appreciate it, dog. Thanks a lot.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.